How did Five Guys Burgers and Fries get me to thinking about public execution? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. While I was at Five Guys Burgers and Fries this weekend, ordering me a grilled cheese with bacon. You might be asking, why did you order a grilled cheese with bacon? Because I didn't want too much food. It was late at night. And I also decided to do something stupid and order a shake. That's right, I wanted a shake. And so I ordered a shake, and it was right before closing time. And when I was sipping on that shake, I'm like, they didn't mix this shake the right way. And I was really upset. But something caught my attention. It made me completely forget about the succulent shake that I was supposed to be sipping on that tastes like a shake that wasn't mixed correctly. And it was the Idaho potatoes. There were sacks and sacks of Idaho potatoes sitting next to peanuts, where some dude was sitting in there, kept coming back in one peanut at a time. I kept watching him. Dude reach into the thing, crack one peanut, walk away, eat it, and come back while I was waiting for him to make my order. This dude was literally getting one peanut at a time. Instead of just getting one of those trays and just getting a bunch of peanuts, he kept getting one peanut. Anyway, cool, whatever. Barely nobody was in the store, and it was still taking them forever to make my food. But there were sacks of Idaho potatoes, and then I noticed where our weekly potatoes came from. There's a weekly potato chart that says where Five Guys Burgers and Fries gets their potatoes from that week, and it said Idaho. And it got me to thinking, man, Idaho has always been known for their potatoes, but is there anything else that Idaho's known for that's crime and prison related? And of course, there was a couple crime stories that came to mind when I hit the Google search key, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know that crime story, but there was one in particular that really got me thinking, and that was the boom, 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 Idaho's firing squad. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. As of now, Idaho is on the precipice of being the first state, actually they are now the first and only state where the firing squad is the #1 method and the first method of choice that the state is going to enact when someone is convicted of one of the most heinous crimes, such as first-degree unaliving or messing with a child that's under 12 years old. Idaho got that one right. If you are convicted of messing with a child under the age of 12 years old, Idaho recently passed a law that would, as of 2025, last year, recently passed this law that if you mess with a child, the death penalty can be on the case for aggravated lewd conduct with children that are 12 years and younger. Now, they have this checklist of 17 points, and the offender has to check at least 3 of the 17 points to be considered and convicted and ultimately punished to capital punishment for crimes against a 12-year-old, which, I don't necessarily agree with. I think this needs to be that you did it to a 12-year-old and younger, and that's all I got to know. Because we have to protect the most vulnerable in our society. I say it all the time on the Pin and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, that we have to protect the children and the elderly. We can't allow people to victimize the most vulnerable people in our society. And too often we have people defending criminals over victims, and this is insane. And this is why we have a depravity in our society today. This is the reason why our society is slowly collapsing, and we're losing the fundamental foundations of decency in our society. Yes, we don't want to have to execute anyone, but when they start messing with kids and elderly who are vulnerable people, we have to do something, and we have to set an example to the rest of society and the rest of the community that if you do this thing, this is going to happen to you. Well, Idaho got that right. But something else Idaho is recently dealing with, and they recently tried to put a man to death, and when they tried to put him to death, it didn't go the right way. Thomas Creech, when they were trying to execute this man on February 28th of 2024, they could not find or establish his intravenous IV location. They could not find a vein to get this man executed. And they tried 8 times, and after 8 times, the state said, stop, we're going to rethink this. And Thomas got to live to see another day, and Thomas Creech is still alive today. And of course, victims, or I don't want to say victims because they say victims, but there ain't no victims. The criminals, attorneys, and criminal rights advocates are, of course, jumping for joy that Thomas Creech was able to live to see another day and that this didn't work. And now they're arguing, you see, this is not a this isn't a practical way to execute somebody through lethal injection. Well, Idaho was having issues anyway with getting the main ingredient that was involved and needed for lethal injection. And there's a shelf life on this stuff, y'all. The main product that's needed for lethal injection, there's a shelf life on it. So if you don't use this product by X amount of time, then it's deemed not safe to use for the execution method to be carried out by the state with capital punishment. Well, they couldn't even find this dude's vein. So obviously the dude's still alive, execution date set, victim's family reliving the stuff over and over and over again. And instead of considering the victims' families that Thomas Creech had, were considering Thomas Creech. He's the one who chose to commit that crime. He's the one who chose to take that life. Thomas Creech. We're not going to get into his case completely today, but this dude is confessed to have unalived dozens and dozens of people. What else you got to know? And he unalived somebody while he was in prison. You know, this dude, man, y'all, we have to have law and order in society. Once law and order starts falling apart, y'all, society itself crumbles. And we have law enforcement agencies and lawyers and people with PhDs and supposedly smart people who are helping the degeneration of our society by getting rid of law and order. We now make the criminals the victims. This stuff is so off, y'all. So when I heard that Idaho said, you know what, forget about lethal injection, forget about the gas chamber, forget about old Sparky, we're just going to do, because somebody's going to complain no matter what, because all those methods supposedly aren't humane. As if the criminals themselves considered what was humane when they were enacting the despicable acts that they committed to their victims. So Idaho said, we're going to go ahead and do the firing squad method. Now, lawmakers in Idaho who opposed this firing squad said, why does it cost $1 million to build a firing squad execution chamber? And I agree. That's the one thing I agree. We ain't spending no extra money to do nothing, because Idaho's Department of Corrections owns acres and acres and acres and acres of prison land. And we're going to bring out the offender, and we're going to bring him out back, and we're going to put one in the back of the dome. Boom! Because that's how easy it can be. That's what China does. That's what a lot of other countries do, that we supposedly always talk about. Oh, we got to protect those countries. We have to have law and order, y'all. And so the only thing I disagree is the cost that they said it costs to build a chamber for the firing squad. We don't need no chamber. We're going to take them out back on the farmland, and we're going to do this thing. And then we're going, because we're a decent society, we're going to allow his family to claim the body so they can have a decent funeral for the dude. We even allowed him decades and decades and decades sitting on death row to say goodbye to his loved ones. These people didn't give anyone the time to say goodbye to anybody. And I'm not talking about no manslaughter. I'm talking about first-degree murder. And I'm talking about messing with kids. So now, Idaho is the only state that has this as the first method of execution, as the firing squad. There are other states that have it as a method of execution if the first method of execution, which is usually the gas chamber or lethal injection, doesn't work, like Utah, Mississippi. There's a few other states, maybe Oklahoma. In some of those states, the inmate or the offender can choose the method in which he wants to die. How come most inmates, when they can choose what they want to choose, they choose firing squad? Because boom, 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 getting one of those in is a lot quicker. Man, that thing's quick. You know, yeah, you might have a couple gasps, you know, but it's quick, and it's the most humane way that there is. Man, we coming to a day and age, I believe, where the guillotine is going to be brought out, and you ain't got to commit one of these heinous crimes. You just got to believe a certain thing. But that's a conversation for another video, y'all. So what do you think about the firing squad? Do you think the firing squad is something that you would like to see your state personally enact? And would you like to see the firing squad or capital punishment for anyone who messes with the most vulnerable people in our society, such as children under the age of 12? Do you agree with that? If you do, toss me a thumbs up in the comments below, and type in the comment which state you live in, and would you like to see your state implement the firing squad for charges against kids, man? Why are we, and this is the thing, man. I watch these these criminal advocate groups, and listen, I'm all for criminal advocacy, but they completely forget about the victims time and time again. And I have a problem with that personally. The victims, I want to see the victim's face plastered when you start talking about the rights of the offender who's sitting on death row. I don't want to see his face. Even when you're talking about him, I want to see his victim's face, because the victims, we just forget about, man. These people are no longer with us. And most of the time, the victims were just innocent people who didn't have nothing to do with nothing. And yeah, I'm going on a rant about this. And yeah, it all started out in Five Guys burgers and fries. And in my mind, I was sitting there waiting for my grilled cheese sandwich with my unblended shake. The only thing they got right that night was the fries. Good thing, Five Guys burgers and fries, that they can get the fries right, because I had those Idaho potatoes that week. And of course, those Idaho potatoes make good French fries. And I'm in the South, so they put that Cajun seasoning on it, And so that was good. But I got home, me and my wife had to blend our shakes up on our own. And it got me to thinking in my mind, Idaho, what's up with Idaho when it comes to crime in prison? And of course, I ran into this firing squad thing, And, another big case that's going on in Idaho right now is, the University of Idaho students that were unalived years and years ago by offender Brian Kohlberger, who's currently on trial. He pled guilty. He's on death row now. And I would like to see them, boom, 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 unalive him. I don't know. Did he get a life sentence or he's on death row? Brian Kohlberger. Y'all remember him. He unalived all those University of Idaho students, man. And man, we got to have law and order, y'all. And listen, I'm an ex-con. Y'all know that. And I believe in rehabilitation and change. But sometimes when you cross a certain line, you can't cross that line back. Yeah, you can repent. Yeah, you can make amends. But society still has to do something about what you did, so we can let everybody else know that you better not do this. We ain't talking about stealing a VCR. We ain't even talking about manslaughter. We ain't talking about armed robbery. We talking about messing with a kid, or first degree unaliving, where you planned and plotted to do the most despicable things. Oh man, y'all. Welcome to the Pen and the Shank, man. Give me a like and subscribe. Go check out my other videos. And thanks for listening to the Idaho Potato Rant.